gracious good day to one and all once again. 'Tis I, Norton the First, by grace of God, Emperor of the United States and Protector of Mexico. Back with you all once again for episode number 197 of Emperor Norton's fantastic history vlog. Today is March 10, 2021, and we'll be covering the 10th through the 16th of March on this episode. It is our 359th day living under COVID-19 restrictions. Wow, we are almost at a year, and it was the pandemic that started this vlog on March 19, 2020. So, programming notes here. Next week, next Wednesday, we will have a clip show celebrating our 1 year. And then the Wednesday after that, which will be, I believe, episode 201, we'll be introducing our new format. So this will consist of, instead of doing things like Florida Man and birthdays and death days, which will all repeat being a, 1 year, we are going to focus in on one particular San Francisco story. Now, kind of like what the Countess does on the weekend edition, but as the Countess concentrates more on people, we shall concentrate more on places and events. That'll be the difference. There's also going to be a second segment that's still sort of taking shape. It might be a little bit of commentary or a cooking segment or a little skit. We shall see. We would love to know your suggestions for what you would like to see in the format change. So comment down below, but also do not forget to like and subscribe. Another thing you could do is email us at emperornortontour@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your suggestions. In addition, we appreciate all of our wonderful patrons. We could not do this without you. So here's where you can donate to help us keep going. It's assisted tremendously in equipment upgrades, this green screen, better lighting, better sound. We still have a few things that are on our wish list to get, but you've certainly helped out, and we certainly need your help in the future as well. Well, I believe that's all the programming notes for today, so let's begin with our national days, which is a segment we think we're going to keep because there are so many, we only name one per day. So let's get on with the next week. Today, the 10th, is International Day of Awesomeness. Well, a holiday for us indeed. The 11th is Popcorn Lovers Day. Do you love popcorn? We do. It isn't a movie without it. Oh, remember movies? Going to a movie theater? Yes, yes. Maybe someday soon. The 12th is National Alfred Hitchcock Day, but we think that's a MacGuffin. The 13th is Ken Day, so all your friends named Ken, don't forget to thank them that day. There is a reason why it's Ken Day. That'll come up later on. The 14th, 3/14, what else? National Pie Day, so eat a piece of pie and the determinants of circumference. The 15th is the Ides of March. We will be feeling a little stabby that day. And the 16th is Artichoke Hearts Day. Well, we do love artichokes, perhaps our favorite vegetable. Let's now move on with our Florida Man segment, which we think is one that's going to fall by the wayside. So really, this is probably our last Florida Man segment. Well, well. Let's begin with the 14th. Florida Man reportedly tells cops he thought playing basketball naked would enhance his skill level. And the 15th, a 71-year-old Florida man tied a gun to a weather balloon to fake his own murder, police say. They did not say whether or not he was successful. Hats off to Florida Man. It's been fun. Well, let's now continue on with our San Francisco story. And as we so often do, and probably will be doing a bit in the future, at least to determine what's on what date, we're relying on John Ralston's wonderful book, This Date in San Francisco. And we're going to be reading directly from it today. Probably the last time we'll be doing that as well. So, Let's start off with March 10th, 1929. The New York Times describes the Chinatown telephone exchange. Quote, perhaps the most unique telephone exchange in the United States is in Chinatown, San Francisco. There are many peculiar features about the China Exchange. The building is of Chinese design with a 3-pagoda roof, the exterior painted in green, red, and black, the interior in black, Chinese red and gilt. Beautifully colored glass lanterns hang from the chimney. As the Chinese have no alphabet, the Chinese telephone directory is arranged by streets, the name of the street appearing across the top of the page. At the left of the column is the telephone number, then the name of the subscriber, then the street number. The Chinese subscribers do not call by number, but by name. Therefore, the operators must memorize the names of all the subscribers, approximately 2,500. Frequently, it happens that there is more than one person with the same name, in which case the operator must secure some identification of the person called. If the call comes for Chan Wing, and there is more than one Chan Wing on the list, the operator will say, which Chan Wing do you want? The grocer on the corner comes the reply, and so the operator is able to call the right Chan Wing. Furthermore, she must speak 4 dialects, but that is not considered an unusual accomplishment. I've heard actually the number of dialects were far more than that. There is very little turnover in the personnel at the exchange. One of the operators, who is completing her 23rd year of service, has her young daughter sitting by her side, employed in a similar capacity. The manager, who was trained under his father, the founder and manager, is 32 years, is a young Chinese and is a native of Chinatown. Now, the building is still there. It's not the telephone exchange, because everybody has cell phones now, and with dial, it kind of became obsolete. It's now the East-West Bank at 743 Washington Street. It's still beautiful. And if you look down near the entrance, you will find the earliest known clamper plaque, and it's to commemorate Sam Brannan's California Star, the first newspaper in California, which was at that location. So check that out. We'll try to put a picture of it up. Let's now move on to March 14, 1896, easily one of our favorite events. The Sutro Baths open. At the extreme west of San Francisco, just north of the Cliff House and below Point Lobos Avenue as it climbs to Sutro Heights, is a depression in which lie incongruous-looking ruins. Mostly foundations. They're all that's left of the Sutro Baths. For over 40 years, one of the most popular recreational spots in San Francisco, and the gift of Adolf Sutro, Prussian-born engineer, businessman, and mayor. And one of the most generous philanthropists in any city. This is true. Sutro made his fortune in ambitious engineering projects, especially a tunnel that drained Nevada Comstock mines. He bought up much of San Francisco's outside lands, the west side, windy and sandy dunes in the west, collected probably the largest private library in the United States and possibly the world, which is now housed at San Francisco State University. Was elected mayor in 1894, gave land to the affiliated colleges of the University of California, now UCSF, built the second Cliff House in 1895, and built the Sutro Baths. The baths, being about 3 miles from settled San Francisco, Sutro connected them with an electric rail line. Sutro envisioned the world's largest natatorium with water mostly from the Pacific Ocean. Sutro Baths had 6 saltwater tanks of different sizes with water at different temperatures and 1 freshwater pool. Engineering construction faced huge challenges. The substructures had to resist wind and wave poundings. Took as long to build and as a cost as more than the superstructures. Statistics were formidable. The baths were 500 feet long and 250 feet wide with a capacity of 1.8 million gallons. 2 galleries would accommodate 7,000 spectators during competitions, and there were 3 restaurants. Patrons entered through a neoclassical portico on Point Lobos Avenue after paying 10 cents admission, 25 cents if they wanted to swim. Could linger in a museum with exhibits collected by Sutro or pass down a staircase, rent suits and towels, and swim and dive. There were diving boards, slides, and trapezes. Dedication began around 2 p.m. on Saturday, March 14, 1896, a cold and windy day outside the baths, sheltered in them. A platform built for the occasion over one of the pools had several speakers, Mayor Sutro, and a band. Colonel Thomas F. Berry eulogized the Sutro and his gift. We have gathered to witness the inauguration of the most splendid baths of all time, he said. We may imagine what must have been the glory of Rome when, among other things, we recall the famous baths of, oh dear, I should look this up in advance, Diocletian, correct me if I'm wrong, and understand something of their magnificence and popularity. In a certain sense, San Francisco also shall be made famous by the splendid achievements of the man whom we honor today. Baths were never more superbly situated, and if nature be not sufficient to make them famous, the charm of art has been abundantly added to make them so. We may congratulate ourselves that this achievement is entirely credited to the genius of one of our citizens. Sutro rose last and was cheered by 7,000 spectators for 5 minutes as the band played for He's a Jolly Good Fellow. Sutro summarized construction difficulties, recommended the exhibits, and commended health benefits of bathing. But before he could finish, a small boy impatiently shouted, "I'm first!" and shot down the slide to the pool next to the speakers. Other boys followed, and Sutro concluded superfluously, "I now declare the baths open." There was an evening program of swimming and diving by Olympic Club members, boxing and wrestling matches, fencing and tumbling, and band concerts. The baths were profitable through the 1930s, then declined. Sutro's grandson had them converted to ice skating rinks, which they remained until the 1960s when they were closed for good. Demolition of the baths for planned condominiums began in 1966, but on June 26th that year, a fire, possibly arson, destroyed what remained. Nothing else was built on the site, and the ruins are now in the Golden Gate National Recreational Area. Colonel Berry's comparison with the ruined ancient Roman baths is especially apt. If you've never been to the ruins of the Sutro baths, they're well worth seeing, and we're putting up some pictures, of course, of what they look like. If we could go back in time, that is definitely one of the places we would go with the Sutro baths. Well, let's move on to our other history for today. Or for the week, rather. Starting with the 10th, 1849, Abraham Lincoln applies for a patent, only U.S. president to do so, for a device to lift a boat over shoals and obstructions. We saw the model. It was quite impressive. 1876, well, speaking of telephones, first telephone call, Alexander Graham Bell says, "Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you," to his assistant, Thomas Watson. 1902, United States Court of Appeals rules that Thomas Edison did not invent the movie camera. 1933, a major earthquake in Long Beach, California. And if you would like to see some of the rubble for that, go to Laguna Beach to see what I believe is the world's smallest cathedral, St. Francis by the Sea. It is built from rubble for the 1933 Long Beach quake. 1964, Simon and Garfunkel record the first version of The Sounds of Silence. 1969, James Earl Ray pleads guilty to the murder of Martin Luther King Jr. 1977, the rings of Uranus are discovered. Well, not yours. 1981, Betty Davis Eyes, the single released by Kim Carnes. And it was released that day as Billboard Song of the Year 1981. You know, it's actually based on a real story. It's a little known story that when Betty Davis died, she left her eyes to science. And Kim Carnes was in need of a cataract operation, and they actually used the lenses from Betty Davis. So when she says Betty Davis eyes, she's literally referring to her eyes. Sounds kind of believable, doesn't it? Let's move on now to the 11th. U.S. Army mess cook Private Albert Gitzel of Fort Riley, Kansas, becomes the first documented case of Spanish flu at the start of a worldwide pandemic, the last one, well, actually 2 pandemics ago, killing 50 to 100 million. There was a good story about that in the news today. 1942, forced deportation train leaves Paris for Auschwitz concentration camp, carrying Paris Jews. 1971, Jim Morrison leaves for Paris to reorient himself emotionally and creatively, and to avoid the jail sentence given to him in Miami for indecent exposure. He will never return to the U.S. He will pass away in Paris. 1947, Rhino Record Store gives 5 cents to take home Danny Bonaducci's album. They'll give you 5 cents to take home his album. Poor Danny Bonaducci. 1997, the ashes of Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry are launched into space. He went where no one's gone before. 2011, a 9.0 magnitude earthquake strikes 80 miles east of Sendai, Japan, triggering a tsunami, killing thousands of people and causing the second worst nuclear accident in history at the Fukushima nuclear plant. 2020, COVID-19 declared a pandemic by the head of the World Health Organization, with 121,564 cases worldwide and 4,373 deaths. Far, far more today. Let's move on to the 12th. 1455, the first record of Gutenberg's Bible, later dated this day by Ennio Silvio Piccolomini, refers to the Bible printed a year before. 1894, Coca-Cola is sold in bottles for the first time in a candy store in Vicksburg, Mississippi. We thought it would have been Atlanta, but there you go. In 1928, in California, the St. Francis Dam fails, killing over 600 people. That was in Southern California. There's a good video about that. 1951, the comic strip Dennis the Menace first appears in the British comic magazine The Beano. 1965, Wooly Bully by Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs single is released. Watch it now, watch it. 1969, 120 cannabis joints found in George and Patty Harrison's home. Oh my. 1981, Walter R.T. Witchley installs the world's largest sundial in Richmond, Virginia. We have 2 giant sundials here in San Francisco, one in the Ingleside district and one in the Bayview. Moving on to the 13th, 1656, Jews are denied the right to build a synagogue in New Amsterdam, now New York. 1852, Uncle Sam, the cartoon figure, made its debut in the New York Lantern Weekly. 1930, Clyde Tombaugh announces the discovery of Pluto at the Lowell Observatory, still a planet in our book. 1943, the Nazis liquidate the Jewish ghetto of Krakow. Oskar Schindler, with advance information, saves his workers by keeping them in his factory overnight. 1980, American John Wayne Gacy receives the death sentence in Illinois for the murder of 12 people. He was a clown and also a painter, and painted a lot of self-portraits of himself as a clown. 1980, the Ford Motor Company found innocent in the death of 3 women in a fiery Pinto. Remember that? 2020, President Trump declares a national emergency, freeing up $50 billion to fight COVID-19. Moving on to the 14th, 1592, the ultimate Pi Day. On this date, 6:53 a.m., is the largest correspondence between calendar dates and significant digits of pi since the introduction of the Julian calendar. So that would end up being 3141592655358. 1794, Eli Whitney patents the cotton gin machine, revolutionizing cotton industry in the southern states. 1870, California's legislature approves act making Golden Gate Park possible. 1885, Gilbert and Sullivan's comic opera, The Mikado, premieres in London at the Savoy Theatre, easily their most famous. I've got a little list, I've got a little list. Maybe someday I'll get to play that role. 1918, the first concrete ship to cross the Atlantic is launched in San Francisco. It was called The Faith. 1964, in Dallas, Texas, Jack Ruby is sentenced to death for Lee Harvey Oswald's murder. 1967, speaking of JFK, his body is moved from the temporary grave to the permanent memorial that is in the Arlington National Cemetery today. 1973, future U.S. Senator John McCain is released after spending over 5 years in a North Vietnamese prisoner of war camp. 2018, a NASA twin study finds that Scott Kelly is no longer an identical twin to his twin brother after 1 year in space. 7% of his genes were altered. Moving on to the 15th, 44 BC, Julius Caesar is stabbed to death by Brutus Cassius and several other Roman senators and on the Ides of March in Rome. Et tu, Brute? 1954, the CBS morning show premieres with Walter Cronkite and Jack Barr. Didn't know that one. 1968, Life magazine calls Jimi Hendrix the most spectacular guitarist in the world. We would agree with that. 1972, The Godfather, based on the book by Mario Puzo, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and starring Marlon Brando and Al Pacino, premieres in New York City. It would win the Academy Award for Best Picture. In 1973, much of that screenplay by Coppola and Puzo was written at Cafe Trieste in North Beach, and with the profits from the movie, he would buy the Sentinel building, where he now has the restaurant, Cafe Zoetrope, bought the booth where they wrote the script, and that is now his private booth, and also bought the espresso machine that made the first espresso to be served on the West Coast at Cafe Trieste in 1956. It's on display in the restaurant. Great restaurant, by the way. Where were we? 1985, the first internet domain name, symbolics.com, is registered. It is now an online museum. 2019, climate change strikes held by school children take place around the world, inspired by Swedish teenager Greta Thunberg. Moving on to the 16th, 1802, the U.S. Military Academy at West Point is established through Congressional Act. It opened on July 4th, 1802. We know the canter there. 1926, Robert Goddard launches the first liquid-fueled rocket. It goes 184 feet in altitude. 1934, the Academy Award Gold Statuette is first called Oscar in print by Sidney Sklovsky. Did not know that. 1948, Billie Holiday is released from prison early because of good behavior. Did you know? 1968, the Milan Massacre occurs when American soldiers kill around 400 unarmed Vietnamese civilians, one of the most controversial incidents in the Vietnam War. 1968, Robert F. Kennedy announces his presidential campaign, which would end in his death, unfortunately. 1972, John Lennon and Yoko Ono are served with deportation papers, a long effort to deport them. Wasn't successful. 1994, Tonya Harding pleads guilty to the felony attack on Nancy Kerrigan. 2020, San Francisco and many other cities go into lockdown because of COVID-19. We're still there. Let's move on to our births for today now. The 10th, 1842, Ina Donna Galbraith, American Poet Laureate, the first Poet Laureate of California. 1891, Sam Jaffe, the actor. You may remember him as Dr. Zorba on Dr. Kildare, but he also played us on Bonanza with kind of a German Yiddish accent, which we certainly didn't have. If anything, our accent was Afrikaner. Yes. Oh well. 1928, James Earl Ray, who we spoke of earlier, the assassin of Martin Luther King Jr., is born in Alton, Illinois. 1940, Chuck Norris, real name Carlos Ray, American martial arts actor, excuse me, is born in Ryan, Oklahoma. So seems like a good time for a few Chuck Norris jokes. Chuck Norris doesn't read books, he stares them down until he gets the information he wants. Time waits for no man unless that man is Chuck Norris. If you spell Chuck Norris in Scrabble, you win. Forever. Chuck Norris breathes air 5 times a day. Chuck Norris has a mug of nails instead of coffee in the morning. If Chuck Norris were to travel to an alternate dimension in which there was another Chuck Norris and they both fought, they both would win. The dinosaurs looked at Chuck Norris the wrong way once. You know what happened to them. Chuck Norris tears cure cancer. Too bad he never cried. Love Chuck Norris jokes. 1957, moving back to birthdays now, Osama bin Laden, the Islamic militant and founder of Al-Qaeda and responsible for the 9/11 attacks. 1971, John Hamm, American actor who played Don Draper on Mad Men and is rumored to have the largest Oh, this is a family show, never mind. Moving on the 11th, 1895, Shemp Howard, American actor and comedian, one of the Three Stooges. 1903, a wonderful Lawrence Welk was born. 1926, Ralph Abernathy, American civil rights leader. 1931, Rupert Murdoch, Australian-born American media mogul, Fox News. 1936, Antonin Scalia, 105th Supreme Court Justice. 1950, Bobby McFerrin, American vocalist and conductor, Don't Worry, Be Happy, won the Grammy in 1989. 1952, Douglas Adams, the author of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. 1957, The Lady Chablis, American transgender entertainer. You can see her in the Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. She's fantastic in it. 1961, we talked about Ken earlier. Well, Ken Day is because it's the birthday of Barbie's boyfriend, Ken, born in El Segundo, well, the Mattel factory that used to be there. His full name, Kenneth Sean Carson. There you go. Moving on to the 12th, 1831, Clement Studebaker, the American automobile pioneer, creator of the Studebaker. Our first car was a Studebaker. 1912, Paul Weston, American pianist and orchestra leader, but also half of the comedy music duo Jonathan and Darlene Edwards. Oh, look that up. 1922, the author of On the Road, Jack Kerouac. 1923, astronaut Walter Schirra. It was on Mercury 8, Gemini 6, and Apollo 7. 1928, Edward Albee, American playwright. Who's afraid of Virginia Woolf? I am. 1931, William Billy Thomas, American child actor. He was Buckwheat in Our Gang, or Bowie. 1932, Andrew Young, U.S. Ambassador to the UN, and also former mayor of Atlanta. 1933, Barbara Feldon, who played Agent 99 on Get Smart. 1946, Liza Minnelli, the daughter of Judy Garland and Vincent Minnelli, a singer, actress, multiple award winner in her own right, of course, Cabaret. 75th birthday, they're doing a special performance virtually for her 75th birthday. We have breathed the same air as Liza Minnelli. We were on a rope line taking pictures with the press, and if we can find the picture, we'll put it up because it's awfully good and we're awfully proud of it. 1948, the vocalist and guitarist, songwriter, James Taylor. Let's move on now to the 13th. 1855, Percival Percy Lowell, the American astronomer, predicted the discovery of Pluto. We mentioned that earlier. 1911, L. Ron Hubbard, sci-fi writer and founder of the Scientology cult. Oh God, they're gonna come after me now. 1921, Al Jaffe, comic strip cartoonist and illustrator from Mad Magazine. Moving on to the 14th, Leopold Lewandowski, Polish composer. We have sung a lot of his music in choirs that we were in. 1879, Albert Einstein. There you go. 1920, we mentioned him earlier, Hank Ketchum. We didn't mention him, we mentioned his strip, Dennis the Menace. 1922, Les Baxter, the king of exotica. Really great music if you like that sort of thing. 1928, another astronaut, Frank Borman, Gemini 7 and Apollo 8. 1933, the actor Michael Caine. 1933 as well, Quincy Jones, the composer, producer, and singer. 1948, Billy Crystal, you look marvelous. 1952, J. Fred Muggs, the chimpanzee who was a host of the Today Show, believe it or not. 1988, Stephen Curry, MVP for the National Basketball Association, 2015-2016, one of our Golden State Warriors. Moving on to the 15th, 270, St. Nicholas, yes, Santa Claus, who was really a Greek bishop who became the model for Santa Claus. But as Chico Marx would say, hey, there ain't no Santa Claus. 1767, Andrew Jackson, the 7th president responsible for the Trail of Tears and the massacre of numerous Native Americans. 1921, Madeline Puig, I hope I pronounced that right, one of the writers behind I Love Lucy. 1933, our favorite Supreme Court Justice, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Oh, if only she'd be able to hold on for another few months. 1940, Phil Lesh, the bassist for the Grateful Dead. 1941, Mike Love, vocalist for the Beach Boys. 1943, Sly Stone, funk musician of Sly and the Family Stone. Moving on to the 16th now. 1751, James Madison, the 4th U.S. President. 1836, Andrew Smith Halliday, the inventor of the cable car. Very important person in San Francisco history. 1885, Sidney Chaplin, the half-brother of Charlie Chaplin, was also his manager, and I think appeared in a number of his movies as well. 1906, Henny Youngman, Take My Wife, Please. 1911, Dr. Joseph Mengele, the Nazi war criminal. 1912, former First Lady Pat Nixon. 1926, Jerry Lewis, Hey Lady! 1959, Flavor Flav. Oh, I should have had a big clock around my neck, I suppose. Oh well. Let's now move on to our deaths for today. Starting with the 10th, 1913, Harriet Tubman, the abolitionist. She died at 91, by the way. 1948, Zelda Fitzgerald, a writer, This Side of Paradise, and the wife of F. Scott Fitzgerald. 1998, Lloyd Bridges from Sea Hunt, and of course Airplane. Oh, I chose a hell of a time to give up sniffing glue. Moving on to the 11th, 1955, Alexander Fleming, the Scottish bacteriologist who invented penicillin. 1957, Richard E. Byrd, the aviator and polar explorer, disputed that he was the first to reach both the North and South Pole by air. 1970, Earl Stanley Gardner, the writer of Perry Mason. Moving on to the 12th, 1914, George Westinghouse, American entrepreneur, engineer, Westinghouse Electric, and pioneer of the electrical industry. 1925, Sun Yat-sen, Chinese revolutionary and father of modern China, the first president of the democratically elected president of China. There's a beautiful statue up to him by Benjamino Bufano in St. Mary's Park in Chinatown. Go see it, it's well worth it. 1945, Anne Frank, the Dutch diarist and Jewish victim of the Nazi Holocaust, the Diary of Anne Frank, dies of typhus in the Belsen concentration camp at the age of 15. 1955, Charlie Bird Parker, the American jazz saxophonist. What a great saxophonist. 1991, here's one that probably you don't know, Etienne De Crew. He was a French mime, and he's really the father of modern miming. He was actually Marcel Marceau's teacher. Moving on to the 13th, 1884, Leland Stanford Jr., the son of American railroad magnate Stanford, and Stanford University is named after him. He died very young, born 1868. Can't do the math in my head, but I'm going to say he died at 16. I can't do the math in my head. There you go. 1901, Benjamin Harrison, the 23rd President of the United States. 1906, Susan B. Anthony, American social reformer and women's suffrage movement leader. 1938, Clarence Darrow, American defense attorney at the Scopes Monkey Trial. 1999, Garson Kanin, American writer and director, but also the husband of Ruth Gordon. 2006, Maureen Stapleton, the actor. Oops, have a little trouble with our papers there. Here we go. Moving on to the 14th, 1883, Karl Marx, German philosopher, writer, co-writer of the Communist Manifesto. 1932, George Eastman, the inventor of the Kodak camera, founder of the Eastman Kodak Company, shot himself in the heart. And I got to look more into that story. 1973, Chick Young, the U.S. comic strip artist who created Blondie. 1975, actor Susan Hayward. 2010, actor Peter Graves, known for Mission Impossible, Mr. Phelps, was also in Airplane and Stalag 17. 2018, Stephen Hawking, the physicist extraordinaire. 2020, Genesis P-Orge, British avant-garde rock singer, songwriter, and performance artist, the founder of Throbbing Gristle. Moving on to the 15th, 1959, Duncan Hines, American restaurant guide writer. And it's true, there was a real Duncan Hines, and he was known for writing these travel books. This one is Adventures in Good Eating. These were used extensively in their day, more the 30s, 40s, and 50s, we think. for travelers to find good places to eat, good places to stay. Fun book to look through. A lot of restaurants that aren't here anymore. 1975, Aristotle Onassis, the Greek shipping magnate, also husband of Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. 1998, Benjamin Spock, American pediatrician and writer. Were you a Spock baby? Not this Spock, no. And 2014, Clarissa Dixon Wright, one of the two fat ladies. The other one being Jennifer Patterson. Anchovies. Can't do Clarissa, sorry. Moving on to the 16th, 1971, Thomas E. Dewey, the governor of New York, a presidential candidate for the Republican Party in 1944 and 1948. 1983, Arthur Godfrey was the American radio and TV host and also a ukulele player. 2016, Frank Sinatra Jr., singer and band leader. And 2019, Dick Dale, American surf guitarist, and really the father of surf guitaring. Our quote today, who else? Jack Kerouac. It seemed like a matter of minutes when we began rolling in the foothills before Oakland and suddenly reached the height and saw stretch out ahead of us the fabulous white city of San Francisco on her 11 mystic hills with the blue Pacific and its advancing wall of potato patch fog beyond and smoke and goldenness in late afternoon of time. That's from On the Road. Read the book if you haven't. That just about wraps it up for today. One thing we're wondering about is what's going to happen April 18 this year for the earthquake commemoration. We haven't seen anything yet. If you see anything, please contact us or leave your comments below, emperornortontour@gmail.com or just in the comments for this vlog. If nothing is planned, we don't think they're going to do an in-person one. There's a lot of misunderstanding last year. We said we were going to do something virtually. It got misconstrued to be that we were telling people to go to the fountain. We would never, ever do that. And the same holds for this year. So if nothing virtually is scheduled, we'll do it again this year. It'll be on Zoom. We'll have a wider audience that way. We'll let you know, but hopefully something more thought out is planned and we'll have a nice commemoration this year. While we're on the subject though, like I said, like and subscribe, contact us by email. Also, if you'd like to make a donation to us, we greatly appreciate our generous donors. We could not do this without you. We are going to have another fantastic trivia quest. We haven't set the date yet. Next week's a little busy for us, but we will have the date soon. Maybe we'll announce that on the weekend vlog. I think that's everything. Well, don't forget to tune in for the clip show next Wednesday and the new format the Wednesday after that. So until we see you again, stay safe, stay inside, and therefore stay healthy. We don't really have to stay inside anymore. If you go outside, wear your mask. Those of us who have received our full course of the vaccination can now socialize once again. So get your vaccine when it's available. myturn.ca.gov if you're here in California. Best way to get the vaccine. If we were wrong on that, we'll put the right one up. Do not take unproven cures that may kill you. Be kind to one another. And until we see you again, a gracious good day.